Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session in the series of talks hosted by VIT Hack 2020. Good evening to our fellow hackers who have joined us today for the session. I am Yash Kumar Verma from the VIT Hack Organizing Committee. And today we have a very special guest with us, who is a well-known hacker and an orator. He has been leading technical communities, participated, mentored, judged, and won numerous hackathons. He's a blockchain enthusiast and the co-founder of Cosmos India. He has an experience of working in blockchain first organizations like Persistence, Block 42 Networks, and Upside Down Private Limited. Fellow hackers, please welcome Mr.Abhitej Singh. Please, sir.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you so much, VIT Hack 2020 team, to invite me for this session. And it's always a pleasure to come and interact with student developers, and especially since being an VIT alumni, it's always a great experience for every alumni to come and interact with their alma mater students. So here today we're gonna just walk through, since we have some time constraints, I want to quickly move through the introduction part and walk you through the agenda majorly. So we're gonna talk about what blockchain is, how it works, what is the role of crypto, and how the evolution of blockchain has happened. Post that, I'll open up for questions and anything you want to ask about, any doubts you have, happy to entertain those. And post that, we will sort of see a demonstration. I'll show you a demonstration of how different applications sort of interact with your wallet, or say how decentralized applications work, which we call dApps. And then if you have any questions related to that, I would happy to entertain that. And towards the end, if you want to know more about what we are doing at Cosmos India, what we're trying to do at Persistence, I would take a quick ride through that for all of you guys to give you more idea. And I hope that through the session, you all get motivated to build some sort of a decentralized application in the VIT Hack 2020, and happy towards the end would tell how I can support you guys, and in terms of both in mentorship, as well as if you do a very good project, how we can help you financially. So I'll just quickly share my screen and then move into it. Please let me know if you guys are able to see my screen. So just that before moving, I have an idea.
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, great. So now if we start, a quick introduction about myself. I graduated from VIT University with majors in information technology in 2019. Worked with multiple startups when I was a student as an intern, or as a part of early team or founding team, and then led multiple technical chapters and communities, as Yash mentioned, and have been part of international bodies as well, some such as MLH, PenApps, SAE. In 2019, I co-founded Cosmos India with some other blockchain enthusiasts, and that is where the true journey of entering into the decentralized world began. And since then, we have been building Persistence, which is a protocol that is powering institutional open finance. So I'll talk more about it towards the end, but we're trying to do something which is bridging the decentralized finance and traditional finance together. If any one of you want to interact, say we miss out on some points in this presentation or in this session, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. Pretty active there, and you can see a lot of things that we do on Twitter. So just beginning with session, let's just talk about how blockchain as a foundational technology is. So something that we need to understand first is what a foundational technology is. A foundational technology is a technology that the end user doesn't need to know that what's happening in the background. For example, the first foundational technology that human existence is known in human existence is fire. So you don't need to know what sort of chemical reactions are working when you light up a fire. If that had to be a case, it would have been so difficult to cook Maggie, for that matter. Like I would have never been able to do that. And same as goes with electricity. All you need to know is how to switch on or switch off a button so your fan operates or your PC operates, for that matter. You don't need to know how the electricity is being transmitted. So these sort of foundational technologies are so the end user don't need to know. The other characteristic of a foundational technology is that other applications or other technologies can be built over it. And this is very key part of what any technology to be a foundational technology. So we saw that over fire we were able to develop electricity. Over electricity we were able to come up with PCs, and over PCs we were able to come up with internet, and over internet we came up with smartphones. And that allowed us to truly tap into the potential of technologies such as AI, ML, big data, IoT, and now blockchain. So over these technologies also, in coming years, we will see multiple other technologies that would be built. So for that matter, for example, talking about blockchain itself, we're going to see a lot of financial applications building on top of blockchain. Now, all of these technologies, that I mentioned at the top layer, are also sort of working in an intermingled way. So there are a lot of IoT implementations that are being done using blockchain, right? So that would be an additional application on top of blockchain. But that being said, we are still in very early stage of blockchain. If I have to give you an analogy of where we are in blockchain, I would say we are close to in 1995, how internet was, or even say 1994, when things were just starting to get together. So blockchain is in that stage right now. There are multiple protocols that are experimenting multiple sort of things, and they different sort of applications that are getting successful are now coming together and then moving towards adoption. And that being said, this is the right time for anybody to get in this field, since there's a lot of potential every day. I would say every day is a long span in blockchain industry. Every hour there's a new innovation happening in this industry. There's a funny incident, if I have to mention. A couple of weeks back, when the industry was in a total boom, I slept with some sort of a perception about what is going to be our roadmap for next 3 months. And I just took a 5 hour nap, I would say, or a sleep. And once I woke up, after those 5 hours, the industry had changed. And we had to revamp our roadmap in sort of like our approach towards industry. That is how quickly this industry is evolving. That is how much innovation there is happening. And I guess that's why I would encourage everyone to interact with us on Twitter, because you could find a lot of those things happening on Twitter. To talk about, a lot of people ask, and this is one thing that is important to know, why there is so much hype about blockchain, why people want to get in blockchain for starters. So as we saw, like before 1994, there was this IT supremacy. There was this research and innovation going majorly on the front of how computers or how computer science can be used in military, businesses, and then enterprise level. So we had organizations like IBM, which were working on business intelligence. So they developed the first sort of the layer of how the computers would be adopted, right? So there was a lot of data computation. You could see supercomputers, but it was not readily accessible to normal people, right? Normal people even didn't want to track. They used to do all their stuff on pen and paper till 1994. And then we saw this internet years. Then internet came into picture. Organizations and companies such as Google, Amazon started to build something. And that was when HTTP and TCP sort of technologies were started being used, and over those there were applications like Google, applications like, say, for example, Google search engine, Amazon's e-commerce was started being developed, and that gave certain boom. So if you want to read about it, I would suggest you or direct you towards something called internet bubble, or it's called dot-com bubble. So dot-com bubble gives quite an interesting overview of what happened in those years. A lot of organizations came out of those dot-com bubbles to become the large organizations as we know them today. So it was result of the series of experiments, series of user interactions that happened over, say, 1995 to 2005, I would say. Till then, we saw applications such as Facebook also coming into picture, right? So what it did was it changed the way we perceive our life itself, not just our information, but our life. Today, if I have to interact with somebody, I don't need to go into the complexities of how would I do it and when should I do it. I just pick up my phone and call somebody, right? So the social interactions became so simple. I don't need to think if when should I get some stuff. I could order it today and it would be at my doorstep. And that is what e-commerce has allowed us. It has allowed people to represent themselves. And this is, of course, the content creation has become so simple, and that we call self publishing. Today, you have an idea, you could present it to the world from different mediums that we have, right? Earlier, it used to be through conferences or a certain group of people. Today, you could be presenting, like this session itself is going to go to thousands of people. I hope so. And such things have happened. And through all of this all have come together to build this world, or the digital world, which we know today. But there are so many flaws in this digital world. This digital world can be manipulated. This digital world can be changed completely because it is governed by central authorities, governed by central organizations. So today, if you want to scrape off somebody from the entire internet, you can do that. The digital footprint can be deleted because, say, organizations such as Google have the entire access to how the data is put in different places. If I have to search Mr.Abhitej Singh, and if Google has put say a blocker on my name, then no result would come up. So this is what, and there's certain other flaws. There are point of failures that involve in this. There is this, and for each application that is built on internet, there has to be certain degree of trust for you to use that. If I, for example, if I today have to tell you that I have started an e-commerce website, which is great, which is going to give you a great service, and I showed you that, but you won't use it in comparison to Amazon. And if you do, I'm so grateful to you. Let me know. I would start tomorrow. But something that happens. So there is a certain trust that is built over with an application over years because of this point of failures that we have in other systems, right? So you have to go through this process of trust enablement, and then you sort of move into using any applications. But that sort of creates this opportunity as well as time cost for everybody, right? So financial cost as well. The companies have to evolve and build something that can be trusted, and the certain parameters have to be done. There's interaction because you don't trust how the middle technology works. So this sort of gave birth to what we know as Bitcoin in 2008, when it sort of came as a solution to the financial institutions for that matter. So what happened is in 2008, we had a crisis because there was no transparency in the banking system, and there was loans were given at a staggering rate, and there was no sort of accountability of how those loans are provided. They just wanted to have this boom in the real estate industry. But what happened is, due to that, the entire economy, not just US, but the entire world economy collapsed. And it was just result of some really wrong decisions, right? So Bitcoin came into place where they said, okay, now nobody is going to be a central authority on how we can exchange value or how we could exchange financial assets. And that is sort of, we saw this blockchain promise coming into picture. So blockchain actually taking birth. And then from 2015, we have started seeing this blockchain promise coming into picture. Now, what this blockchain promise is, this is decentralization of trust. So if I have to use an application, it creates a trustless environment. So I could go into an application and I can use it. And I don't need to build a trust with, say, the third party that is providing. So for example, if taking a case of Amazon, there has to be this certain relationship between the seller on the Amazon. So you would get 15 orders on Amazon, but you say, this one seller is great because of this reason. And this sort of is what the trust building is, but that is eliminated or sort of is dealt on blockchain because anybody can interact with anybody. And this trust is created by the network and not central authority like Amazon, which can manipulate ratings as we see, which can manipulate how we see a seller because they could put them up and down based on how much they pay them for advertising, right? So things like those are eliminated when we talk about decentralized networks. And this enables as value flow without intermediaries. As I said, without Amazon, you could exchange value with another seller. Without banks, you could interact with another, say, buyer and seller, or anybody. Two people can interact and transact, say, economic value or cash or something like that across this network without this intermediary bank, right? So this is what is value flow without intermediary works. And we'll get more in detail into it. So just want to show you this, how the blockchain works. So if you see, I am a user and I want to initiate, I want to do a transaction with, say, for example, Yash. Okay. So what happens is I will request a transaction on the network. And what will happen on the network is, this network is basically, but let's understand what this network is. So blockchain is nothing but a web of nodes. There's multiple nodes that exist. All of those nodes are connected with each other. So this is more like how you would say decentralized ledger technology works. So there's this term which all of you can keep in mind and then look after this. Happy to share more resources as well after the session, but for this time being, let's understand this, what DLT is. DLT is a distributed ledger technology. So what this distributed ledger technology means is all the nodes that exist in a network don't have a central database. So central database is if there's one database in which all these nodes keep adding the transactions or data, then what happens is if I hack the central database, then the entire system or entire network is corrupt. All of these nodes are going to pick up this corrupt data. But what if I can create, distribute, or copy, basically more nodes which are not the copies but the original copies itself. So how these original copies are created is sort of these all nodes are interconnected. So if I have to say, I have 4 nodes, then in the square, all of these nodes are connected with each other. So what happens is, if I am putting in one node a data that is updated in real time in all of the nodes, this is called distributed ledger technology. So how you would maintain a ledger, same way here a ledger is maintained between all these nodes. If a single node is sort of corrupted, then what happens is other nodes can know it because they would see that the transaction was not updated in their nodes. So this means this system has been overtaken by a malicious actor, and then it is eliminated from that network. And these three nodes now maintain the further contact. So if I have to say, then it becomes a triangle, for example. Right? So the malicious actor or the corrupted node is taken out of the system. So a lot of companies are adopting this DLT mechanism, and there's a protocol called Hyperledger which effectively managed of creating this DLT. But there is a flaw with DLT. There's not enough incentivization or motivation for these different actors to do the right thing, and there's no great value or incentivization to have good behavior. So to encourage that is how this network of decentralized nodes is created in a manner as there is this cryptocurrency element that's just involved to incentivize it. We'll talk about this after this slide, but just want to show you that's how this DLT works. So consider this network which has all these nodes. So you could have, I took an example of 4 nodes. You could have thousands, you could have millions of nodes in this network. And how we have today in Bitcoin, for example. In Bitcoin, there are, I would say, millions of nodes right now running. And all these nodes are have the same copy of and there's no, this copy wouldn't be the right word, but everyone has this original ledger on their systems, on their nodes, and this original ledger is being updated in real time across the network. So what happens is, and that is we're going to really talk about how now this works. So if I'm a user and I make a request for a transaction, for example, transaction with Yash, what happens is this transaction is represented as a block. So block is nothing but a collection of data, and it could be a collection of transactions as well, right? Just like me, who is transferring to Yash, there could be other person who could be transferring. So for example, Nanika could be transferring to Pood, and that transaction is also layered into this or stacked into this block. So there would be a Abhitej Yash transaction, there would be Nanika Apurva transaction, and the data related to these transactions is put in this block. Now this block is sort of broadcasted to the entire network. So what happens is when you put a block, it is broadcasted to the entire network. And broadcast, I mean truly broadcast. How would you are broadcasting this video to thousands of people, right? Same with this transaction is broadcasted to everyone. Now what happened is the entire network of nodes, please excuse me for the spelling mistake here, but it's nodes. The entire network of nodes validates the transaction. So as I told you, this is a decentralized network. Now, each node sort of puts their validation to this to the transaction. So taking alternative example would be that we have a classroom in which there are 100 students, right? And then a teacher asks these 100 students that and proposes a solution and says, is this solution right? Then what happens is all these students start voting, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And for this solution to be right, 51 students have to say yes. Okay, so teacher is not the central authority here who would declare that a solution is right or wrong. All these students have the right to say if the transaction is right or wrong, right? So this gives power to each actor, gives power to each participant in this network. So all these students, if they come to this 51 votes, and this is an example of what I'm taking of Bitcoin network, then a consensus is reached. Consensus is nothing but an agreement. So all these nodes or all these students basically have come to an agreement. So this once they come to an agreement, this solution is validated. Same way, in our case, this transaction has to be validated by the majority, or which we call is is the consensus. How much number of nodes need to agree, how much percentage of nodes have to agree to a certain transaction to reach a consensus. So that is done here. So all these nodes come to a consensus, and then the transaction is validated. Now this block, once it's validated, this sort of is pushed into the network. So this whole chain, which we call as, so this blockchain, we write. So it is chain of blocks. So this block is inserted into this chain. So now if you had, what happens is this transaction of me and me and Yash, sorry, and then there is Nanika and Apurva. So that these transaction is added, it is in the chain. Now, if there is a new transaction that comes in, for example, if it is between Tushar and Mikhil, or it's between, say, Dipanshu and Abhishek, then this two transactions again are validated, goes through this process, and another block is added. So one block and after another, these are added, and this chain is created of blocks. This is what blockchain is. And then this transaction is completed. In blockchain, what happens, the beautiful part is anybody in the world can go out and check if that transaction is approved. And who did this transaction? Say, from my address. So there is an address, basically an identity of your identity is in terms of this address, wallet address, or it could be origination address. So from my wallet, if it was from my wallet to Yash wallet, this address is defined, and this address moves to the Yash wallet. So both of these addresses are put in, and I'll just show you an example as well for you to get an example. So we will take Etherscan, which is an Ethereum's wallet. I'll just share my screen. If you guys can say yes and no, that would be great. If you could see my screen.
Yes.
So it's like an explorer, right? So how you would see Google as an explorer where you could go and find any data. Same here, you could find transactions data. So if you go to your bank, there's no bank has an explorer that if I transferred some money to my father, that transaction will never be broadcasted, right? And that is why banks are able to do all the manipulations that they can do in this world. Same way as say, you could see which miner. So every participant or node in that we had, the decentralized nodes that we were mentioning in Bitcoin or Ethereum network is known as miner. Okay, so you could see that who is the latest proposer of a certain block. Okay, so all of those names are mentioned. Okay, this person proposed the latest block, and they are mentioned here. You could see all the latest transactions. So, for example, I don't know who this means. Who did this transaction? It is anonymous, but I can see that this transaction hash happened, and this transaction was done between, say, this address and this address. So it could be Abhitej and Yash. So you could see it. There's what sort of money is moving where. You can see it. So in this transaction, these two people exchange 3.6 ether. That is equal to close to, in today's market, is close to just above $1,000, right? So $1,000, yeah, $1,270 was moved from this address to this address. Now imagine if we were able to see, I mean, not getting political, but there's quite an issue about PM care funds. Nobody knows where this fund went, where it's being used. So if all of that fund was put on blockchain, then you could see who contributed, and where did this fund from peer care fund move to, say, hospitals, to the frontline warriors, to relief, as a compensation to the families which had some sort of fatality. All of those you could see on chain. So there was a real-time verification audited, and that's the true power of blockchain. So coming back to this is high level what you need to understand what blockchain is, how it works. And talking about where does crypto comes in play. So we remember, now coming back to that point where we mentioned DLTs. So all of this, what I defined, can happen on a DLT, on a distributed ledger technology. But why do we advanced it to blockchain? Just taking an example, if I had to say that, say, hey guys, all the hackers who work, who build a solution right in this hackathon, say, get 1,000 rupees additional. I mean, no cheating. They go through this entire process of auditing, the entire process of validating throughout and every stage of the hackathon, and they do right thing, then I would give them additional $2,000, right? So there is some sort of an economic incentive for every hacker to curb on their desire to do some sort of malicious activity or do some sort of try and pick and copy paste code here and there, because now I have an incentive to do so. There's incentive for good behavior. Same way is used here in blockchain. So for all these miners, which we talked about, or all these validators, the validators and miners are these nodes that exist in the network. For them to do the right thing, that any transaction that is happening, if it is true or not, and they support the right and wrong, then if they do the right thing, then they're incentivized for it in terms of crypto. So if you are on a Bitcoin network, if a transaction, so what happens? Just taking an example, and quickly after this example we'll jump into questions. Say if I have to transfer $10 to Yash, and I have $10 in my account, right? So I go and put a transaction as here requested. The first step here, we could see this first step on the screen. I go and say, I want to send Yash $10. Then what happens? This transaction goes into network. Now, everybody validates that I have $10 in my account. And then what happens is, if I have $10 in my account, then all of these people do the right thing and then approve this transaction, and this $10 are transferred from my account to Yash's account. Now, in practice, I have $0 in my account. Now, what happens is, I know some people who are running nodes in this network. Some of my friends are doing, say, for example, companies I'm working with, they are running node. I go to them and say, I'm going to make another $10 transaction, and all of you guys have to support me. Or even I am a pool, and I'm a pool of nodes, basically, and I run thousands of nodes. I take this responsibility. I'm going to move this money from here and there, and every node in my network on my pool is going to approve it. So what happens is, I again send $10 from my account to Yash's account. I put this transaction on network. Now, these all nodes that I know, if they approve this transaction, which is because I have $0 in my account, they did it because they knew me, or just because of some ulterior motive. If they do that, they are de-incentivized. De-incentivized means is, if they had put $10 as a stake, or say as a part of this network, then they're basically that cuts down to 8. This is a simple understanding, right? So in sometimes they are not allowed to propose a transaction. So basically they are penalized for doing wrong thing. All the people, all the nodes that did the right thing, that they said, Abhitej doesn't have $10 in his account and he cannot send $10. All of them are incentivized. And this is what the beauty of blockchain is. Because since there's so many nodes and you cannot know who is running each node, you cannot take the network down. And you cannot basically do a wrong transaction. This is where crypto comes in play. So you have distributed ledger. When you insert this incentivization and de-incentivization model, this economic incentive, which is crypto, then it becomes blockchain. So that's why crypto is, somebody would say, there's blockchain, there's crypto. Correct them. There's DLT and there's blockchain. Any network, any decentralized network, which is running without this economic incentive, incentivization, is a distributed ledger technology. Once you involve this incentivization model, then it becomes blockchain, and then it truly becomes decentralized. Um, that is what wanted to present. And in terms of economic growth, Bitcoin has been performing, and not just Bitcoin, all other entities. I'm just taking because Bitcoin is sort of an industry standard. In just this year itself, it has outperformed any other asset class. And why is it happening? I mean, it's not just because of the economic value or sort of interest that people hold in just hedging against inflation. It's also about the innovation, the adoption that is coming with the innovation that is happening in the blockchain industry. If you go in deep, and you could reach out to me after this session, I can direct you towards right resources. This DeFi, their NFTs, gaming, all of this is happening. And all of this is booming this growth. So if you say, start of this year, since then, Bitcoin has increased 63% in comparison of stocks, which we see today as one of the biggest investment opportunities or sort of a standard for economic growth. They just grew 3%. That's like plus 60% in comparison to stocks. And it's just going to go booming from here. And I'm not just saying go into and jump into speculation. I'm saying go and see why this is happening. And this wanted to show you this graph for sparking that curiosity that you go and check out why this is happening. So more or less, this is what I wanted to discuss. And there's this last part, and it's very understood what happened with 2008 was Bitcoins were introduced. What Bitcoins allowed is what we talked about, this network, right? What Bitcoins allowed is this allowing you transactions. So you cannot build applications on Bitcoin for certain reasons that are out of scope of this session. But reason is you could do transactions in a decentralized manner. Like the example I gave, I have to send Josh $10. I don't need a bank to sort of approve that transaction. I can do it on my own, right? I could have complete control on this transaction. And then over that, a new concept came in, Ethereum. So what Ethereum was blockchain 2.0. What it allowed was to write logic, write this code over a network, and this code would define how an application can behave. So this allowed us as users to interact with an application, and you could do multiple things with these applications. And these applications were governed by these logic smart contract. And mind it that even a developer once defines a smart contract, he cannot or she cannot change it. This is what is a beauty. If you talk about other technologies, I write a logic today, for example, and say example of Google Pay. I can change the logic of Google Pay anytime. I can change the basically if there was an autonomous contract that was managing, I could do that, but there is no one because the banks are involved, so they are the central authorities. Here, there's this autonomous code which sort of governs. So no other entity is cross-verifying it. It is completely autonomous and has authority. So the code, mathematics, the algorithm has the power to define if the thing is right or not. So Ethereum allowed to build applications such as gaming, gambling, DeFi over this network. What then came blockchain 3.0, Cosmos, over which persistence is built, and in some capacity, persistence is now moving to provide this interoperability at large scale, right? So what 3.0 protocols such as Cosmos, Persistence, Polkadot, what they allowed is interoperability. What is this? Like we had, say, for example, we had Google, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. All of these can interact with each other, right? They all are connected. I can go to any app, any website or application, and I can sign up there using Facebook. I could sign in using Google. This allows us. This is called interoperability, right? Same way, before these blockchain 3.0 networks, all of these, say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tezos, and the other chains, which sort of sat in silos. All of these chain operated only in their silos. This is like VIT students cannot interact with Manipal students or cannot interact with BITS Pilani, IIT. All of these were different pools of students. They never interacted with each other, right? Same way used to happen before these blockchain 3.0 protocols. So what this Cosmos and persistence are allowing is different networks to connect, different assets to connect with each other. So they are connecting an internet or a communication between different protocols. This is how the evolution has happened in blockchain industry, in crypto industry. And I'll rest my guess. I guess I took some 10 minutes more than what I intended to do, but just wanted. Please shoot any question that you have in mind. No question is a wrong question or a dumb question. Would try my level best, allowed by how much time is allowed by the organizers to sort of answer all your questions.
Yes, we have quite many questions, so I'll be picking them one by one. So there was one question raised by Apurva and Nanika. It was mainly related to the project, so I'll just explain it a bit. So as to say that students often think that it's difficult to come up with something that's entirely new because like all the low-lying apples are already plugged because internet has kind of matured. There are languages which can do almost everything that we want to do. And when we look towards the field of blockchain, it's a fairly new domain. So can you recommend any cool innovations that beginners can try out or anything particular which they can use in the hackathon projects?
Absolutely. So, there is this misconception that you need to understand too much about blockchain to start building an application. And there's this, I will give you an funny example. I recently met an architect who just started, say, 6 months ago, and has built an DeFi application, which sort of allows different people to lend and borrow money or cryptos, right? So it is very simple. All you have to do is understand if you have a basic understanding of writing a logic, then there are multiple tools that you can leverage to create decentralized applications. And they're very simple on something like Ethereum or Cosmos. And if you want, we recently did a session called on Starboat. Starboat is a technology developed by Cosmos, which allows you to just spin up an application on top of it. So it's like how I can run, a Docker node, and everything is managed by Docker in terms of creating this DevOps complexities. I don't need to take care of those microservices. Docker takes care of those. Same way, the Starboat takes care of all the blockchain layer of things. All you have to do is incorporate those modules and write your logic. Similar way, there are multiple tools available in Ethereum. All you have to understand is what sort of application. So simple application, if I have to give you an example, is this makes me think of a good example. So if you have to think is, right now how peer reviews happen in colleges, and teachers don't trust these peer reviews because you would go to your friend and get a peer review done, right? And I mean, there's not essential necessity of a peer review until we are getting into an efficient system. Why would you need a peer review? Is because you don't have to stand, say, 5 hours or 6 hours out of a teacher's cabin in SJT, for example. Like how, at least in my time, used to happen is you're waiting for a review to be done. Teacher is out of there. They're not available in their open hours. And this happens is because teachers also don't have an option. All the students do corrupt things for that matter. They just copy paste assignment from here and there. What if you created a network where you could put this assignment and the entire network sort of verifies this assignment. And there could be multiple teachers involved. There could be students outside of VIT involved. There could be industry experts involved, whoever sort of had time, and they're incentivized to do so, right? So if, say, if I am doing the right thing, then say if this application is developed and given to VIT, for example, so all the students sort of who come and are registered on this network and are verifying these assignments, and if they're doing it right, then VIT sort of keeps giving them these credits. And these credits can be redeemed for services. For example, say I need a transcript. I can redeem these credits. It becomes a sort of a financial tool, right? I could use these to redeem these credits in some other way of a service that VIT is providing. For example, I lost my ID card. I have some credits in my wallet. Rather than paying 500 out of my pocket, I can just use these credits, right? So things like those. So this is one of the great example where this peer-to-peer network can be utilized for true potential. So if you want to build an application is very simple. All you need to know is get all these nodes on board, which say, for example, a network like Cosmos, you could have your own nodes. So you could create your own nodes. You don't need to have the existing Ethereum's miners to participate. You could have these different nodes from college, which includes administration, academia, students, industry experts, and on top of it, there is this application, which this might sound very complicated, but it's simple. Other simple applications you could develop is lending borrowing applications. So you could create you could have a VIT coin, for example, and this VIT coin can be exchanged in accordance to different services that are available in VIT, right? So like how, let me remember what it was called. There was this, if I'm not wrong, there was this Enzo. Enzo used to give this coins, this red coins, if I'm not wrong, if they still give it, not. But these coins were actually in exchange of real world value, that if they don't have change, 2 rupees, 1 rupee, then they would give you this red coin. You could go and redeem this red coin on DC or Enzo. Same way, you could create a VIT coin. Now, rather than transacting in cash, if anyone, this VIT coin is widely accepted, and people can lend and borrow this, right? So, so such sort of applications can be developed. Other example is right now, you could create a student lending and borrowing application where interest rates are lower, right? So if any student today holds crypto, okay? So I know that a lot of students are getting in crypto. They hold Bitcoin or they get bounties. So for example, there is one student from VIT itself who's ambassador for Cosmos India, and that matter, anyone can be a Cosmos India ambassador. His name is Aditya. He sort of participated in multiple hackathons, multiple bounty programs, and earned a lot of crypto. Now what he's doing is he's putting this crypto to work, and he's lending this crypto on platforms like Compound or other platforms, and then they can basically he's earning interest on that. Same way, but there the interests are little higher if you are borrowing. Now you could create an application which allows students to lend and borrow crypto. So I could borrow crypto and then convert into INR through exchange. Now this allows me, say, extra 50, 500,000, 1,500 rupees you would need in a dire need. You could lend and then, you could borrow and then you could return back to this network. And this is completely decentralized network, right? And these sort of multiple things can be done using Bitcoin examples. There's certification, verification, and please feel free to reach out to me. And if somebody is working on any application, happy to guide them through.
So since we just discussed about financial transactions using Bitcoins, so I just had this little doubt, because now we know that since the entire network is fallback proof and it's reliable because everyone has copies of the same data, because it's being broadcasted to all the nodes. So how do you scale it on a network? I mean, if you're doing a financial transaction, how much time would it take if there are like about a million nodes in a network?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the scalability had been a great issue for Bitcoin for years. So transaction generally takes basically, there is like Bitcoin can do around 7 transactions per second, where Visa can do close to, so which we call TPS, transaction per second. So Visa can do now close to 30,000 transactions per second, right? So this is the reason where I'm saying is we are still in a very nascent stage. We are where internet was in 1994. I remember my uncle mentioning or showing me one video where it took, or you could go on internet, where it took 20 minutes to website to upload, or sort of kept on buffering. You would require, say, when YouTube came, you would require 5 minutes. You would sit like this and wait for the video to buffer. All of that has happened, right? Over years, what we are seeing in internet today, all this transaction speed, you send a message, it reaches up there, somebody in like microseconds. It's all been because there's been this innovation for 21 years, and prior to that as well, right? So different protocols are working. Today, if you take example of Cosmos, you take example of persistence for that. Persistence is enabling transactions at much faster rate, right? So you could have practically, you could have more than 300, 400 transactions per second. So this is how speed is growing. And for this one thing I would like to mention is, why would you use blockchain over a traditional method for transaction, right? The ability is basically where you would require, say, a cross-border transaction. So today also, financial cross-border transactions are much faster on blockchain. Just give you an example. If I have to do a transaction from India to New York today, what will happen is I'll submit this transaction to my bank. My bank will take 2 days to process it through Treasury and connect with their correspondent bank. There's this term called correspondent bank, which would be, say, for example, for HDFC, it is JP Morgan Chase in US, in New York, right? So they will connect with JP Morgan Chase. And now JP Morgan Chase, this is going to take a couple of days. So after that, what happens is JP Morgan Chase will transfer that amount from their treasury to the person who it has to be sent. And then after, say, 6 months or after every quarter, these two banks will sort of match their accounts, and then this will settle this differences between the inflow and outflow of cash. This takes say T plus 3 days to settle cross-border transactions, right? If you do a transaction on Bitcoin, that is settled in, say, close to, say, sometimes 3 minutes, 2 minutes. I can send money from here to New York. I can send money from here to anywhere in the world, for that matter. It just take 2 minutes, from 3 to 2 minutes. So yeah, I mean, it has its advantages. It is evolving. Tomorrow we would say see 10,000 and then 20,000 and then 30,000. 10 years from now, we would definitely have 40, 50,000 transactions per second on blockchain.
So I guess we just discussed about cross-border transactions and international transactions. One of our community member, Trisha Manotra, asked this. So when we are making everything on the blockchain, I guess the only identification that we have is the hash and the signature. Am I right?
Yep. So you have the unique public key, which is broadcasted. So basically, this public key is, you have two sets of keys. If this is a bit technical, but what happens is you have a private key and you have a public key. So this public key is basically what is used in a public view of your transaction. So public key matches, and then a transaction is verified. How you sign it is you sign it through your private key. right? So if I have to go to my wallet and a transaction has to be signed my wallet, then that would be signed using my private key. So there's a unique identification to this. Hash is a unique identification for the transaction, not say, essentially a person.
So the question actually was, since there's a layer of abstraction over the users who are actually using it, so how do we check the malicious activities that are happening over the cryptocurrency transactions?
So it's a great question. So what happens is, right now, all of these transactions are, of course, they're anonymous. But what is happening is, if as we are moving towards, as the industry is maturing, what is happening is, if we have regulations around crypto, then we would be enabled to counter those not malicious activity would be wrong, but say wrongdoings in world, right? So if you would say, I could send money to a terrorist organization, right? And then what will happen is, nobody knows who is sending it, so you wouldn't know. I could create multiple. So that is why regulations are so important around this. And to be very honest, this is a misconception that is created, or this is a propaganda that is created, that cryptocurrencies are majorly being used at dark web. If you look at the proportion of how much percentage of cryptocurrencies is being used for doing these malicious transactions, is very small. It is less than 10% in comparison to, you could use dollars, you could use gold, you could use bonds, are being used to do all sort of activities on dark web. So everything has its pro and cons, but as the industry will mature, we would have regulations, and then you could actually, it would sort of have some sort of foundations on such regions or such sort of IPs. You could have that sort of, that they're not, you're not supplying power to these bad actors, or the socially bad actors in the world.
I guess we had a few more questions. Now, there have been cases of bitcoins being stolen, and there was a very widely internationally covered incident in which a man accidentally threw about $127 million worth of bitcoins. So, since the ledger is shared by all, how are these incidents actually possible?
So this is what I mentioned. Everything is defined by code here. There is no humans are not defining transactions. So what happens is, Bitcoin basically cannot be stolen if you are storing it on a decentralized exchange, for example, or I'm storing it on a hardware wallet. So what happens is, you have hardware wallets. I can insert my hardware wallet in my laptop, and then store all my bitcoins in this hardware wallet. Take out this hardware wallet, then nobody has access to these bitcoins. So nobody can steal it because it's not on the network. The major that anybody steals these bitcoins is from centralized exchanges or through bugs. So if I'm using an application which has a bug in its code, then what happens is, the attackers then leverage this. They exploit the code to extract out the bitcoins from that contract. So if I had some bitcoins, and I'm putting it, say I'm wrapping it up, and then I'm putting it in a smart contract. For example, I have Ethereum, ETH, and then I'm putting this ETH into a smart contract. And this smart contract has a bug, so it's not audited. So what happens is, I can go and see where the final transaction is going, and then sort of exploit that address, and then get all these ETH to divert it to my wallet. That is how stealing happens. So you have to be very careful in terms of which application you're using. Be very careful in terms of, is the code audited enough? How the community support is there? Also verify their code once. You could, every project in blockchain space, if it is truly public, then it's their code is available on GitHub or anywhere they're hosting it. You could go through and see for yourself that it is called. And in terms, there are certain precautions that you need, and it is in the real world as well, right? I could send money to some wrong account, and if um, that person doesn't send me money back, I'll lose my money, right? So in terms of Bitcoin also, you have to be very careful in terms of which address you're sending, because once you have sent, now they are the rightful owner of that money. And if they intend not to send you back, you cannot reverse that transaction. So unlike how in real world you could reverse the transactions, you cannot do it. And it's done for the right cause. Because if we start reversing the transactions, then what will happen is it will again become a centralized network, right? Like how banks do, how governments do. They can reverse any transaction, which they don't like. Right? So if a hacker is able to exploit the smart contract, they're able to exploit a certain wallet, or your say your laptop, for example, then it's their art, right? They did the right thing. They are part of a decentralized network. So decentralized network gives power to everyone, power to hackers, power to the right people or the rightful owner of money. So you have to be careful. But now multiple security services are and tooling is started to pop up around these networks. So there are certain checks you can have. So, for example, my Binance account, if the entire Binance network is not, say, or Binance exchange is not hacked, then nobody can actually go into my account personally, because I have these different sets of layers of security in between. I have to give my email verification, my mobile verification. I have to give my seed. Seed is this phrase that only you should know, nobody else. Right? Why your parents or so? So in case something happens, they could use your funds. Otherwise, it's locked. So only you and somebody you trust should know the seed. Right? So things like those.
Since we know that blockchain ensures like a level of transparency that no other method of financial transactions can like possibly achieve, so what exactly is stopping the big organizations or the big players in implementing this? Why don't we see things like this happen? I mean, yes, there are countries using it in production, but why isn't a majority of communities or majority of organizations shifting towards it? I mean, why wasn't PMK already implemented via blockchain?
So let me give you an instance. Before 2007, all the enterprises run on something called intranet. Nobody used internet. They didn't need internet. They said, why would we need an internet? So the organizations running in, say, certain countries were only interacting with each other. So Oracle would only interact with their own organization. IBM would only do with their organization. It's when internet became cool, and then they're sort of tested, validated, experimented by the entire community. That is when it came into mass adoption, right? And we started seeing this massive adoption of it once we had smartphones. Right? Same way, it's been less than 5 years we have actually seen the blockchain blockchain development. Says with Ethereum you could build applications. That being said, lot of organization, it might not happen or is not visible to people who are outside or see it upfront, but a lot of organizations are testing blockchain in the background, or they are layering blockchain in their tech. For that matter, MicroStrategy, which is one of the big, Fortune 500 companies in US, gave up all their treasury as gold and adopted Bitcoin as a hedge. So they changed their treasury mechanism. So against inflation, they hedged on Bitcoin. EY launched their own public chain, being the first big four to launch their own public chain. Many organizations like Google Ventures also are trying to tap into the potential of a blockchain. Facebook launched Libra, which would allow you to do transactions using Facebook or through different mediums on this decentralized network. Everybody is working on it. It's just that it's under the sheets right now, and it will see mass adoption. And one very important thing is here, since anyone, any actor, or today I can start my own organization. I don't need permission. I don't need verification from these big organizations, and I can counter them to run any sort of application, right? So that's why indie developer or these crypto native people are governing most of the things. But 10 years from now, we will see this mass adoption. Right now, we are seeing most of the financial use cases shifting towards blockchain and crypto. Tomorrow, next thing would be we would see other voting, e-voting shift to blockchain. We would see publications shift to blockchain. All of those will happen, but eventually. It's like eventually and then all the way.
And one final question, and I guess not only me, there are like many of our community members wanted to ask this particular thing. So if you could tell your 21-year-old self something, what would you tell him? That's mainly something like well beyond the scope of cryptography. That mainly comes into the mentorship part. So what would you suggest?
If I was to tell 20 years of old me, that is like 2 years back, which I told myself was, you have a chance to create a difference. You have a chance to explore and learn something new. And you have you have internet. You're studying in VIT. You have this network of people. You have alumni who are working at great places. You have to leverage this network and then start exploring something new. For me, that was blockchain, for example. I started connecting with people and started knowing. So there's this thing today in blockchain, since it's like just like what I would say, really, it's like 4 or 5 years old, and people started working on it. So even if somebody had 50 years of experience in industry, they are also starting from the same page where I am doing. And most of the people actually in the normal world are not doing it. And I'm way ahead of them. When this becomes a mainstream, then I would be way ahead of the curve from all these people. And this could be people from largest organizations like Google, Facebook, EY, KPMG, XYZ, ABC. I don't know, but that is what the important thing for all of you is. You all have this, all the assets that you require in your piggy bank. All you have to do is leverage those. Connect with more people and attend more sessions like these, of course, and be very interactive. You have a doubt, ask it. No question is dumb question, because if you are evaluating yourself on the basis of what other people will think of you, then you're losing an opportunity. There is this, which I'm myself practicing, is be shameless. Be shameless to learn. Okay? If you're shameless to truly learn and explore, you will reach great heights. Ask your teacher why something happens. What at most, and if you feel what fear you would have is she would throw you out of the class. She would throw you out of the class. She would not give you grades. But if that is bothering you, everything in your life would do that. Ask them difficult questions. Ask your friends difficult questions. Why we are doing so, if we are doing. But we are in this social constraint of doing the things which everyone is doing. Most of you would be jumping in this hackathon just because one of your friends is doing it, or because hackathons are cool. You're not doing it because you really want to explore. If you're truly here to explore, if you're truly here to make difference, try something new. After this session, go out, ping me up, ask questions that I have taught this, I read this, do the homework, and then come back. That is how shameless you need to be. And people are there who respect people who reach out to them, and they support you. And that's, that is one of the things that is great in blockchain. You could reach out to CZ, who is the CEO and founder of Binance. You could reach to Tushar, who is the CEO of Persistence, right on Twitter. You could reach them on Telegram. That how open they are, right? You cannot reach today, for example, you cannot reach to Sundar Pichai because he's the CEO of Google. You don't have the direct contact. This industry is starting up. There are people who are doing innovation who are going to change how we see things, but they are very open. They will have a call with you. They would have a session with you. For example, I see my team, for that matter, getting on so many calls, explaining so many people, walking them through. For example, Tushar himself has sat down multiple sessions with me when I before I joined Persistence to walk me through this. In my college, when I came out, there was this one of our seniors, very close friend now, Hitesh, and that is what I'm saying, who brought me into this industry. He would sit with me on these calls. So that's what I would say. My 21 years old. You have to be shameless. You have to think from different from the world if you really want to do it. Your friends, your family, your peer, your college, if they don't see the imagination or capabilities you have, put them on a side. Get isolated in terms of doing what you really believe in. Now, people will say, you're stupid. Why do you spend like 40 hours a week on writing some bullshit code? Let's go party. Let's do this. This is cool things. Instagram, putting stories on Instagram is cool. If you don't really feel like doing it from inside, don't do it. And if you love doing it, don't stop yourself. Go out there, put yourself, your pictures or your videos in PJs, in pajamas, in anything you're waking up, make a video. Be shameless. That's what I would say.
I would say that was really a gold level life advice. And thank you very much for such a swift and effective overview of crypto and blockchain. And I guess it was a really informative and a high level workshop, and it was really easy to understand all the concepts. Now, I personally have no background of blockchain, and I was really able to understand all of these things to the very core. So thanks a lot again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you guys just on an ending session, if you guys want to explore, right now we are also running Hackathon India Hackathon, which is about to, it's in final stages, but you could go to Cosmos India YouTube channel. We have hosted multiple sessions for people who are just starting out. So, and the thing is, Cosmos is written on Golang. So it is very easy to pick it up. So if you're using C, you're using Java, or for that matter, you code on Go, then it's just a great starting point for you to quickly pick up things. At the please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I guess still visible. My Twitter handle is visible. And if you guys come up with a solution that is built on related to crypto, blockchain, please feel free to reach out to me. There are certain funds, there's certain ecosystem funds that we have to support people who are building blockchain technologies. We are also provide a lot of support in terms of mentorship, in terms of connections, connecting you to the right people. All the support we can do. It's just an initiative which we are doing as Persistence, which we are doing as Cosmos India, to support the young minds to develop decentralized technologies. So with that note, I guess, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Yash, for being such an patient moderator, I would say. We certainly crossed the time limit we had set. And everyone at Hackathon 2020, thank you so much for hosting us, me, and showing us. You could see anything that we are doing on our website, persistence.one. You could reach out us on Twitter. You can personally reach out to me on Telegram as well. And I'll just say goodbye with this, that this is a great time to start with something like a decentralized network. Because 10 years from now, you could be the next Sergey Brin or Larry Page, because it's as new as that. Right? So this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm working on. And every day is a new day. And keep hustling, keep hacking. Goodbye. Take care. Have a great VIT Hack 2020.
Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you.
Yep.